Hello guys, my topic was on youth sports psychology and my name is Kalia Phillips and this is for the Kanice 443 presentation. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my introduction. The definition of my definition of youth sports psychology, what I found to be was that it's the study of how sports affects adolescents' behavior both mentally and physically. And a breakdown of each of those words, youth sports and psychology, go as follows. Youth is the period between childhood and adult age. Sports is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. Psychology, the scientific study of the human mind and its functions, especially those affecting behavior in a given context. Adolescence, which is similar to youth, the definition of adolescence is a transitional stage of physical and psychological development that generally occurs during the period from puberty to legal adulthood. Adolescence is basically a teenager, a child, anyone who's not an adult. And these are the people who I'm going to be talking about in my presentation. Okay, this slide is on adolescent development. And as I already stated in the previous slide, adolescence is the transitional stage from being a child to becoming an adult. And this development, it causes for the mental, physical, and psychological needs to become more enhanced. It's when a child is slowly becoming an adult, as already stated. And it causes for lots of support and influence because the child, they are new to many things. So this causes them to need to be guided in a way that they might not know how on their own. And they can also easily be influenced by good or bad things. We'll talk about that later. Social development is also enhanced. Not all children grow up with other siblings, so they sometimes have a problem with social skills. So as an adolescent grows, they in school and in sports, they are allowed to be able to enhance their social development. Next, I have sports association or development and how it's related to everything that I've been talking about so far. Sports are used to help adolescents. I'll get to more of that in detail at the bottom of the slide. Also, extracurricular activities in general, mostly sports, are the central development settings for athletes. A little bit more about extracurricular activities is that little attention has been paid to its role, and it is important to adolescents' growth. It also provides a challenging setting for students outside of academics that helps them maintain contact with the school environment. For example, students who aren't really closely into academics, such as anything going on during school hours, they might feel more comfortable with things outside of school hours, such as sports or clubs or anything to dedicate their time to. That'll keep them involved with school and give them more of a motivation and a focus toward completing school. A lot of times, this is what happens in high schools. A lot of students are motivated by sports to continue to stay in school. Also, the use of sports allows the child to get a physical workout in while also mentally working their brains. Um, Basically, what this means is the child gets to work with others and enhance their social skills. They are solving problems by competing in sports and playing in different games. And by playing in these games, they have to discover strategies on how to actually win the games. All of these things are developed around helping them become more mentally focused and strong minded and centered around On this slide, I'll be discussing some negative results that I found from some research that was in the article that I read. In the article, there was a research that showed that not every type of activity operates in the same manner to influence adolescent psychological adjustment. Relation between participation and adjustment depends on the activity under consideration. The people that conducted the experiment, Rees and Howe, which was done in the year 1990, they examined the relationship between male sports participation and self-esteem. And some results that they found was that football was related to higher self-esteem. Another result, boys who participated in a greater number of sports reported feeling more irritable, while they also reported less of an emphasis on self-control and personal independence. Another result was that basketball players placed less of an emphasis on honesty and social responsibilities. And another result was that the authors concluded that sports participation was not beneficial for adolescent boys' social and value orientation. To sum all of that up, this research that they conducted, it was trying to compare whether or not sports help boys with their social and their values in life. And the results showed that they did have high self esteem, but their social skills and their honesty levels they went down. The results that they received was not to a high extent. What they got was showing that it was more negative. On this slide, I'll be talking about some positive results rather than negative from an article that I read. Um, from this article, the specific research shows results of a systematic review investigating the psychological and social benefits of participation in sports for children and adolescents. And actually, that's the actual name of the article. The name of it gives exactly what they did in the article's research. In this article, they found out that participation in sport is very popular among children. However, there is evidence that participation in sports peaks at around ages 11 to 13 years before declining through adolescence. Conversely, there is research indicating that children who are active through sports are more likely to be physically active in adulthood than those who do not participate in childhood sports. On this slide, I have some problems that we have with our youth today. I just have just a few listed here. There are many others. Right here, I have obesity, which is a very prominent problem, and that comes from children not eating healthy and living sedentary lifestyles. And by sedentary, I mean is what they do as a child is go to school, come home, eat snacks and lay around and just play video games and do nothing and just sleep rather than exercising and being out and being physically active. Another problem we have is drug use, and it's been known that children as young as age 10 or 11 or maybe even younger use drugs such as marijuana, and this comes from the influence that they have around them and maybe even something that they might see at home or something of that sort. Also, we have delinquency in our youth today, and by that is what I mean by that is they perform delinquent acts. And if you're unfamiliar with that, then that means that they just act out of conduct and they act out of character, and they think that it's okay. They think that it's a cool behavior, but it ends up getting them sent to juvenile schools and things of that sort. So they continue to act out, and eventually, hopefully, they recover from their delinquent acts. But that's also a problem with our youth. And lastly, what I have here is changing social forces. And this is the activity that the children have around them in their personal lives and in their family home lives that affects them. And some examples are that both parents are working in the household. You have single parent households, and there's also an increase in youth unsupervised time while the child is at home. All three of these things, what they do is they affect how the child acts, and it causes problems in the child's life. On the previous slide, I discussed the problems that we have with our youth today. And in this PowerPoint presentation, what I'm doing is presenting how sports helps with a child and their behavior. So basically, how sports assist with these problems. It assists in many and several different ways. For one, it keeps them out of trouble. If they're competing or at a game or in any activity, extracurricular activity, they will stay out of trouble because they'll be occupying their time elsewhere and actually having fun. Which leads me to the next point. It gives them something productive to do and to look forward to. They won't just sit around and wait to do nothing or to get into trouble. They actually have something to go to and do and have a time and a set schedule to do it. Also, sports assist by even giving children possible future careers. Uh, if they realize and that they're and if their coach and teammates realize that they're like really good at the sport, then that promotes the coach to influence them to continue to work hard. So maybe once they reach high school and college level sports that they're in, they will possibly be set for a scholarship or anything like that. Sports also helps adolescents gain mentors, and by mentors I mean people that they can look up to and call on and get advice from whenever they might need that. And that includes coaches, um, assistant coaches, anybody who works with the team and outside of the team that might come in to just help the team. The student or the adolescent might look up to that person and become a future mentor for that person. Also, sports helps adolescents meet new people and maybe even meet lifetime long friends. Students who play sports together for several years, I've known, and I myself am one who still has friends from playing sports with and being friends with while I was an adolescent. Sports bring people together most of the time in a positive way, and that's something to look forward to in the sport field. Finally, in this slide, I'll be talking about the psychological results that results from sports in the adolescent stage. Some results include that emotions are mainly what are affected when that student or adolescent is playing a sport. What they get out of the win or the loss affects their emotions, and it'll determine whether or not they'll want to come back and play. And it can also contributes to their behavior. Um, if they win, they'll more than likely have a positive behavior, as we have uh, discovered in a previous slide. Sometimes it's a negative behavior. Something such as losing a game can result in a child bullying another child due to the fact that they think the cause of the loss of their game was that student. So they bully them or beat up on them, and this causes a negative or bad result of behavior. Also, as I already stated, emotions affect the child because if they win, then they gain pride from winning, and that causes a victory thrill, which means that they get excited and happy that they won. So they gain pride and they uh, know what they can and can't do now. So they eventually maybe even develop a love for the game, and that's a psychological thing as well. That's an emotion, a result of how the game has affected them. On the far end of the ladder, you have them losing. That causes them to lose motivation to continue to want to play, and that's a negative result. And that's also a psychological thing because in their mind, they may even think that it's their fault. And because they are so young, it's easily to be convinced that you were wrong. So that's just something that comes with being an adolescent. Here I have listed is a statistic that states, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, the year 2002, 43% of high school seniors participate in athletics and 8% are members of a cheerleading or drill team. As we come to an end, I come to a conclusion, and I conclude that youth sports psychology is a very broad topic. It's a lot of things to discover and learn about it because adolescents are very diverse people, and also there are a lot of sports in the world, which leads to my next bullet, everything that I just said. And sports affect these adolescents in many different ways, negative or positive, as stated in the previous slide. The psychological effects can either be very bad or very possible more than hopefully very good, and mostly it'll affect the child in a positive manner. And as far as this presentation goes, I had fun. I learned a